Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure.
Hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with your host, me, Rosie D. Candia. So let's go right in, because after the last chapter, I'm sitting here sweating, schwitzing, biting my nails. We're back to Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, Chapter 9, The Neverbird. The last sound Peter heard before he was quite alone were the mermaids retiring one by one to their bedchambers under the sea. He was too far away to hear their door shut, but every door in the coral caves where they live rings a tiny bell when it opens or closes, as in all the nicest houses on the mainland. And he heard the bells. Steadily, the waters rose till they were nibbling at his feet, and to pass the time until they made their final gulp, he watched the only thing on the lagoon. He thought it was a piece of floating paper, perhaps part of the kite, and wondered idly how long it would take to drift ashore. Presently he noticed, as an odd thing, that it was undoubtedly out upon the lagoon with some definite purpose, for it was fighting the tide, and sometimes winning, and when it won, Peter, always sympathetic to the weaker side, could not help clapping. It was such a gallant piece of paper. Once again, that Peter, he's a mensch. He's all for the underdogs. We like that. I've been an underdog my whole life, you know what I'm saying? So I feel it. It was not really a piece of paper. It was the Neverbird making desperate efforts to reach Peter on the nest. By working her wings in a way she had learned since the nest fell into the water, she was able to some extent to guide her strange craft. But by the time Peter recognized her, she was very exhausted. She had come to save him, to give him her nest, though there were eggs in it. I rather wonder at the bird, for though he had been nice to her, he had also sometimes tormented her. I can suppose only that, like Mrs. Darling and the rest of them, she was melted because he had all his first teeth. Look at this. The Neverbird wants to save Peter. She's got eggs. She's a mother of these eggs, and she wants to help Peter. You want to talk about sacrifice? This is what mothers do. So I'm not a mother. She called out to him what she had come for, and he called out to her what she was doing there. But of course, neither of them understood the other's language. In fanciful stories, people can talk to the birds freely. And I wish for the moment I could pretend that this was such a story and say that Peter replied intelligently to the Neverbird, but truth is best, and I want to tell you only what really happened. Well, not only could they not understand each other, but they forgot their manners. You know, I appreciate that on the author's part, because even though this is a whimsical, magical children's book, he's still trying to keep it real, where the bird and Peter can't speak to each other, obviously. But I do think that's pretty interesting, because he said, I still want to keep it the truth. You know what? That's the thing in life, my friends. When you're dealing with anybody, especially children, always tell them the truth. They know they can sniff out anything. So if you're lying, please, them kids pick that shit up right away. I want you to get into the nest, the bird called, speaking as slowly and distinctly as possible. And then you can drift ashore, but I am too tired to bring it any nearer, so you must try to swim to it. What are you quacking about? Peter answered. Why don't you let the nest drift as usual? I want you, the bird said, and repeated it all over. Then Peter tried slow and distinct. What are you quacking about? And so on. The Neverbird became irritated. They have very short tempers. You dunderheaded little jay, she screamed. Why don't you do as I tell you? Peter felt that she was calling him names, and at a venture he retorted hotly, So are you. Then rather curiously, they both snapped out the same remark. Shut up, shut up. Isn't that funny? Even though they don't speak the same language, she said something, she called him a name, and because in the way she said it, her intonation, he knew exactly what she was saying, right? Have you talked to somebody in another language and you're like, I don't know what they're saying, but I know what they're saying. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, the bird was determined to save him if she could, and by one last mighty effort, she propelled the nest against the rock. Then up she flew, deserting her eggs so as to make her meaning clear. Then at last he understood, and clutched the nest, and waved his thanks to the bird as she fluttered overhead. It was not to receive his thanks, however, that she hung there in the sky. It was not even to watch him get into the nest. It was to see what he did with her eggs. There were 2 large white eggs, and Peter lifted them up and reflected. The bird covered her face with her wings so as not to see the last of them, but she could not help peeping between the feathers. I forget whether I have told you that there was a stave on the rock driven into it by some buccaneers of long ago to mark the site of buried treasure. The children had discovered the glittering hoard, and when in mischievous mood used to fling showers of moidores, diamonds, pearls, and pieces of 8 to the gulls, who pounced upon them for food and then flew away raging at the scurvy trick that had been played upon them. The stave was still there, and on it Starkey had hung his hat, a deep tarpaulin, watertight with a broad brim. Peter put the eggs into this hat and set it on the lagoon. It floated beautifully. Damn! Starkey lost the hat, but look at Peter. He, even though the bird, Never Bird, did something kind for him and didn't expect anything. We're going to get into this in the woo-woo. Did something kind for him and didn't expect anything. Look at Peter reciprocate in a way that, I don't know, would somebody have been that smart? So put the eggs in Starkey's hat. Okay, thank you, Starkey. The Never Bird saw at once what he was up to and screamed her admiration of him, and at last Peter throwed his agreement with her. Then he got into the nest, reared the stave in as a mast, and hung up his shirt for a sail. At the same moment, the bird fluttered down upon the hat and once more sat snugly on her eggs. She drifted in one direction, and he was borne off in another, both cheering. Of course, when Peter landed, he beached his bark in a place where the bird would easily find it. He's still thinking of her, how sweet. But the hat was such a great success that she abandoned the nest. It drifted about till it went to pieces, and often Starkey came to the shore of the lagoon and with many bitter feelings watched the bird sitting on his hat. That's what you get for being a dick, Starkey, and a stupid idiot. As we shall not see her again, it may be worth mentioning here that all Never Birds now build in that shape of nest, with a broad brim on which the youngsters take an airing. Look at that. Well, see, Starkey, there you left your mark. Okay, Starkey. Great were the rejoicings when Peter reached the home under the ground almost as soon as Wendy, who had been carried hither and thither by the kite. Every boy had adventures to tell, but perhaps the biggest adventure of all was that they were several hours late for bed. This so inflated them that they did various dodgy things to get staying up still longer, such as demanding bandages. But Wendy, though glorying in having them all home again safe and sound, was scandalized by the lateness of the hour and cried, to bed, in a voice that had to be obeyed. Next day, however, she was awfully tender and gave out bandages to everyone, and they played till bedtime at limping about and carrying their arms in slings. I love it. We got a resolution. That was a short chapter, moving the plot along. Wow, for a short chapter, let's talk about this. Sacrifice, okay? We have the Never Bird, who's got nothing herself but a nest and her 2 eggs. What does a mother do? Loves her babies. And here she sacrifices herself to help Peter, who they said was nice to her, but sometimes tormented her. But still, she had some sort of affection for him because he had his first teeth, meaning he was still a child. And she saw that. And what she did was she sacrificed her own happiness to save Peter's life. Then in return, amazing, Peter saves the eggs. Now, because the universe provided the hat. And this is where we say one good turn deserves another. In life, where has it been that you've done something wonderful for somebody, expecting nothing? And that's the key, expecting nothing. And then it's like you did this nice thing and the person is so grateful. I know I've had that, or I've done it for other people, and they're just so grateful. And you're just like, oh my God, it was nothing, I'm glad I could help you. But then in return, a year later, 6 months later, who knows how many, it doesn't make a difference. And if it's not even then, you get something even more grandiose. And that, my friend, is karma, okay? So I do want to talk about giving without expectations of receiving. Because when we give, and we have to give with a whole heart, we don't give because we're trying to receive something back. That's the worst reason to give, because basically what you're doing is you're just being an opportunistic. You're just being someone who's an opportunist. And you're not giving because that's what's in your heart to do. And don't ever feel guilty if you don't give, because you know what? There are times in your life that you may, if it's going to sacrifice yourself, you have to save yourself before you save others, right? But we're not talking about that. If you're compelled to give to somebody, you give because you're not expecting anything from them. And what happens in return is, yeah, you might not get it back from them because you're not expecting anything, but you get a reward so much greater. First, the reward of giving is receiving that feeling that you knew you helped somebody and that you could change their life in some sort of way, whether it's small or grand. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. Have you ever volunteered for an organization, or you did something so great for someone, or someone done something so great for you? And think about the feelings you felt when you've given to somebody and they were so appreciative, or vice versa, that you were appreciative to them. And it's like this feeling of just like, oh my God, that's what I'm here to do. And as humanity, as humans, we are here to give and receive, and we're just here to like connect with each other. So I do think when you give, please don't have expectations, but also know that whenever you give with a whole and open, loving, beautiful heart, you know what? It is appreciated. And also, I do like to think karma is marking up points. Now, I don't want you to give just to give so you can have karma marking up points, because remember, the universe, God, spirit, whatever, the real intention is under there and it's known. So you can't be fooling the shit around you. The energy is real. So give without expectation, and then you never know the possibilities of where it can go. And I think that it's really important today to also be able to receive. I think a lot of people who are really great at giving find it very difficult to receive. So I want to encourage you to think about, are you a giver or are you a receiver, or are you equally both? Because, my friends, it has to be balanced, okay? And being able to receive, and it took me a long time to learn this, is knowing your self-worth and self-love. Because if you are not able to receive a kindness from somebody, whatever that is, a kind word, a gift or something, you have to evaluate why you think you are not worthy of that gift. Because if you can keep giving to people, which is beautiful, you should still be able to receive. So I want you to think about, if you're journaling, fine. If not, it's okay. Listing or thinking about, am I a giver? Am I a receiver? Or do I know how to do equally as well and as graciously? Because as you give, you want to give graciously, and when you receive, you want to receive graciously. So I think it's very important for both. It's like to have both in balance, just like your masculine and feminine energy, right? It's just like the light and the dark, the yin and the yang. So I'd like you to think about your giving and your receiving, and also how you feel when you give to people and you give just with so much love. It's just an amazing feeling, and what that brings up in you, and also how you feel when you receive something that has come from somebody. Even if it's the smallest thing, it doesn't make a difference. How does it feel to receive? And once again, just be in a place and a flow of just understanding that when I give without expectations. And then I just want to say about the point of sacrifice. Neverbird was kind enough and loving enough to sacrifice her little baby eggs to give it to PETA. And, where in your life have you sacrificed something of yours to give to somebody because you truly wanted to give? Or has someone done that for you? And if someone has done that for you, and even though you've thanked them, I want you to think about them. And maybe if you need to write them a letter or a card, or just give them a call or a text and just be like, was thinking of you today. Unless you're still in good contact with them, then just be like, remember that time you really did that huge favor for me? I just want you to know it still sits in my heart, and I still remember what you did for me, and I really want to thank you. And especially what's been going on the past few weeks with the life that we've been living. Who has stepped up to the plate? What family members? What friends? Who has come up? Co-workers? Bosses? Who has come up and stepped up to the plate and maybe reached out to you to see how you're doing, sent you something, talked you off a ledge, whatever it is, and hold that space in that heart, in your heart for them. And then if you need to tell them, if not right away, even write them a beautiful little card or a little letter saying, I just want to thank you. And you know what? I just think it's always lovely to tell somebody, even if it was from like 15 years ago and you're still friends with them, just to let them know. So, you know, the time you did that for me, I want you to know it would never went unnoticed. And even though I thanked you then, I just want to let you know it still brings warmth to my heart. And I want to tell you I appreciate you for that. So there is a lot of good that can come. That was like a 4-page scenario, but that packed a punch. Even though there wasn't tons of excitement, it was all about giving, receiving, sacrifice, no expectations, and actually doing a kindness. And then at the end of the day, lastly, you know how we always talk about the universe provides? Starkey left his hat. It was his favorite friggin' hat. He left it there on the island. And look at that. The bird sacrifices her young, gives it to Peter, the little nest. Peter sees the hat that Starkey left behind and has a brilliant idea. And now the bird has an even better situation. And that's another thing too. Sometimes when we give something and we just release it and let it go with light and love, we get something better out of the deal. That's not our motive, but the point is that does happen. So think about those times too, right? When you've let go of something or you've given something to somebody, you're like, you know what? I'm going to part with it. I don't need it right now. And then all of a sudden, a day later, for a month later, a week later, like I've given clothes away. Then all of a sudden, a friend will be like, you know, I have some great clothes I think I want to give you. And they're like these amazing things that I was like, oh my God, I would have never been able to afford them. What have you? Like I got a pair of Prada heels from a friend last year. And not that that's what it's about. The point is, it's like, just think about the fact that, remember, it's a circle, it's a cycle, it's reciprocity. So as you give, you receive, but you need to learn to receive. So I want you to think about that. Oi, there's a lot to think about. Giving, receiving, sacrificing, but sacrificing in a good way and sacrificing with light and love. And maybe it's not, you know, actually it's not considered a sacrifice when you do it with light and love. All right, my friends. Okay, I've come down off of that fear angsty last chapter, so I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I hope that you're enjoying the little pearls of wisdom I'm dropping to you. And knowing that as, you know, I'm learning as much as you are learning from this, and I'm enjoying this as much. I hope you are enjoying it. And if you are enjoying it, hit me up with an email, jerseybeatstheclassics@gmail.com, or write a comment under the freaking little, you know, the video or something. And if not, it's fine too. You know what? Just as long as you got something from it and you're either laughing or you got some inspiration and you're feeling a lot of my light and love and joy and peace and everything else. I'm wishing you a magical day. Okay, friends? Have a good one. Yeah. Thank you for being a friend. Do. Travel down the road and back again. That was one of my favorite shows, The Golden Girls. Actually, my mother is like Sophia Petrillo and I'm like Dorothy. I mean, I'm a shorter version, but my mom is from Italy. Her name is Teresa. I have a mother, Mother Teresa.